Thanks for joining us. Police sources say at least 4 people have been killed after officers opened fire on demonstrators in the English-speaking northwest region of Cameroon. Protests have been taking place for the last month in the country's Anglophone regions. They claim they're neglected and marginalised by the largely French-speaking establishment. The latest clashes occurred in Cameroon's third largest city, Bamenda. For more on this, we can cross now to Zigoto Chaya. Zigoto, what more do we know about what happened in Bamenda?
Cameroon was in chaos this Thursday morning when the Prime Minister, head of government, and the Secretary General of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, the party of the government in power, was about to have a rally to request for calm from the common law lawyers and the Teachers Association, who have been on strike for the past 2 months. According to sources on the ground, the violence escalated because a host of young boys undressed and burnt the CPDM party uniform of an elderly man who was going to attend the rally. While there were serious confrontations with angry protesters and security forces, the hotel where the Prime Minister, head of government, and the Secretary General of the party in power were lodging was blocked by angry protesters. So far, the death toll, according to the national television, is 2. The Social Democratic Front, the main opposition party, talks of 4, and many wounded. But all these figures have not yet been confirmed officially.
The police have been justifying their actions today, talking about neutralising hostile targets. How is the police response to these protests being viewed across Cameroon?
Yeah, since the strike actions escalated in the 2 Anglophone regions of Cameroon, many people have been complaining of police brutality that has paralyzed those parts of the English-speaking regions. According to some forces, some security forces, they are facing a strong, organized and well-coordinated violence from angry protesters and will not allow those parts of the country to be destroyed.
Depuis les collines au-dessus de la vallée, une vue imprenable sur une cité frondeuse. Bamenda, capitale d'une des 2 provinces anglophones du Cameroun, désormais placée sous la surveillance d'unités spéciales de la police. Des patrouilles armées dans une ville à l'épicentre d'une contestation inédite, encore meurtrie par les séquelles de plusieurs jours d'émeutes. Sur cette vidéo amateur tournée par les manifestants, les flammes de la colère dans le centre-ville. Et en tête du cortège, l'un des leaders de la protestation, Mancho Bibixi, devenu porte-voix de ces contestataires anglophones, minorité linguistique dans un pays officiellement bilingue. Quelques jours plus tard, le voici, libéré après avoir été interpellé, mais toujours déterminé à mener le combat, au nom des 20% d'anglophones s'estimant marginalisés par les francophones. Pour cet activiste, plus question de vivre dans un État camerounais centralisé.
Soit on nous donne un État fédéral au sein d'une fédération, ce qui veut dire que les anglophones auront leur propre parlement, que nous aurons notre Premier ministre, et même chose du côté des francophones. Comme ça, nous, anglophones, nous pourrons élire nos maires et nos gouverneurs. Dans ce cas, nous pouvons continuer à vivre ensemble. Et s'ils refusent cette solution, alors ils devraient nous laisser le droit de tracer notre propre route, de fonder notre propre État, et les francophones pourront rester au sein de leur république.
Un État fédéral avec une administration autonome en langue anglaise, une revendication populaire dans le système scolaire anglophone, paralysé ici depuis 1 mois par une grève dure. Engagé dans un bras de fer avec le pouvoir, Wilfred Tassan, leader du puissant syndicat enseignant, ayant décrété la fermeture d'écoles comme celle-ci. Un mot d'ordre très suivi, et pour lui, pas question de reprise sans obtenir la préférence linguistique pour les professeurs anglophones.
Nos griefs sont liés au fait que le gouvernement forme et puis nous envoie ici des professeurs francophones pour donner des cours à des élèves anglophones. Et ce qui se passe, c'est qu'ils abrutissent nos élèves, ils les détruisent. Parce que ces professeurs francophones enseignent dans une langue qui n'est pas vraiment de l'anglais et qui n'est pas non plus du français.
En apparence, un retour à la normale à Bamenda. Mais jusqu'ici, pas d'accord entre le gouvernement camerounais et les protestataires anglophones.
Allongez le pas, les gars, allons.
Le calme revenu dans les rues, mais une tension toujours perceptible dans ce bastion historique de l'opposition. À quelques kilomètres de la ville, un immense domaine appartenant à l'homme considéré comme le plus riche du Cameroun, un milliardaire anglophone réputé proche du pouvoir.
Mais demain matin, avec vous parlez.
Un entrepreneur secret, mais impliqué depuis plusieurs jours dans de discrètes négociations pour éviter l'escalade de la crise anglophone. Avec une ligne rouge, surtout pas de fédéralisme dans un pays comptant près de 300 langues locales et presque autant de groupes ethniques.
Le fédéralisme, c'est totalement impossible. Absolument pas possible. Ce n'est même pas la peine d'y penser. Nous l'avons déjà expérimenté il y a très longtemps et cette époque-là est largement révolue. Quiconque réclame aujourd'hui le fédéralisme, franchement, je ne crois pas qu'il aime beaucoup ce pays.
Le fédéralisme, un système politique appliqué dans le pays après les tutelles françaises et anglaises entre 1961 et 1972, date de la réunification des deux Camerouns. Une république unie, jamais acceptée par ce groupuscule prônant la sécession de la région anglophone. Une organisation illégale selon la loi camerounaise, arborant un drapeau sécessionniste interdit.
Freedom now. Freedom now.
Une poignée de vieux militants déjà emprisonnés plusieurs fois, mais rêvant toujours d'un pays anglophone indépendant.
We are all resolved.
Désormais, les habitants de notre région, le Sud Cameroun, les véritables propriétaires de ce territoire, comprennent bien notre engagement et c'est pourquoi il y a une clameur grandissante qui demande rien de moins que l'indépendance.
La question anglophone, désormais en bonne place dans l'agenda politique camerounais de 2017.
A child's innocent stare through one eye. Fourteen-year-old Aline became a symbol for English-speaking secessionists in Cameroon. She was shot in her father's house on October 1st, the day the Cameroonian separatists proclaimed their republic, called Ambazonia, a proclamation that was severely repressed.
I was just sitting down. I was not doing anything. I want you people to help me so that I can see work and go back to school again. People should continue praying for me so that I can get well.
Aline's family live here in Kumbo, a well-known separatist stronghold in the two Anglophone regions in Cameroon, regions renamed Ambazonia by supporters of the secession. Ambazonia is a virtual country, a ghost state that separatists have been dreaming of for 56 years. A dream that has been resuscitated by activists like 70-year-old Vincent Jumbam.
This is an almanac which was gotten in 1955.
Kept as a souvenir, the map of the former British Cameroon before being united to French Cameroon in 1961, a territory that the Anglophone separatists of today have claimed as Ambazonia. Their future English-speaking country, with their founding fathers, that's already got its own flag.
This is the flag of the Southern Cameroons. A great flag indeed. I respect it. I have it in all the corners of my own house. Here is one, and a good number in my cupboard. It is a symbol of the new country, Ambazonia. It is that which gives you a sense of patriotism. I am of this nation.
Independence wasn't offering.
At home, this independent supporter watches just one television channel 24 hours a day, the Southern Cameroon Broadcasting Corporation. The Ambazonia channel, declared illegal by the Cameroonian authorities as a secessionist propaganda tool broadcast from abroad. Despite the TV channel and the flag, it's not enough for this elderly activist who even dreams of having an army.
We shall have our own army, which is going to take care of every other thing else. We, in our communities, we are also ready for any eventuality. We need only direction. We still have La République du Cameroon in our territory. It is now left to us to look at all possible ways to get them out of our territory so that we can manage our economy, we can manage our administration, and we can manage the life that is supposed to be ours.
The name Ambazonia comes from Cameroon's history and geography. The word comes from the banks of the Mungo River, a natural barrier between French and English-speaking Cameroon. Close by lies Ambas Bay, discovered by the British missionary Alfred Sacker in 1858. The territory inspired the name for the fantasy republic of Ambazonia. The future republic plans to establish its capital city here in Bea, the provincial capital of Cameroon's other Anglophone region. On the streets, dozens of military units and armed police are on patrol, ever since public buildings and security forces have been the target of violent attacks by a new terrorist organisation, according to the authorities, who are determined to track down secessionists. To meet the independence leaders of Ambazonia, you have to leave Cameroon and head to neighbouring English-speaking Nigeria, which has become a refuge for Cameroonian activists. Behind the creation of a provisional government in exile, led by Sissoko Ayuk Tabid Julius, the self-proclaimed Ambazonian president is the government of Cameroon's public enemy number one.
I am the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. We are going to separate. We have restored our independence. We are going to discuss the terms of that separation, and then we'll build a wonderful nation that I would invite you in the future years to come and be witnesses to what we are saying today.
He denies accusations by a newspaper in Cameroon of misappropriation of funds of a public company. The computer engineer is organising the battle for freedom and the birth of Ambazonia, financed largely by the English-speaking Cameroonian diaspora. After lobbying the United Nations and Western diplomats, he isn't ruling out a military armed struggle.
En tant que président de la République, toutes les options sont sur la table.
Y compris l'option militaire.
Si c'est une option, oui. Et c'est la lutte pour laquelle je suis prêt à vivre et je suis prêt à combattre, je suis prêt à mourir.
Ambazonia, a name that evokes more and more tension in English-speaking Cameroon.
The grieving of a family and a community faced with the unbearable image of a mother and her two children buried in one coffin. There was not enough money to buy three. Here in Nigeria, around 5,000 English-speaking Cameroonian refugees took part in the funeral of 8 members of the same family. They are believed to have died of carbon dioxide poisoning. Barnabas's wife is one of the victims. He tells us that most had just arrived in the area of Ikom from Cameroon after fleeing fighting in their villages.
It was because of this problem of Cameroon that most of them, they joined us here. They were just living here with me, the entire family. I'm so sorry that God who brought them to this world actually returned them back.
Not far away, on the other side of the border, the victims' home village is now controlled by Cameroonian soldiers. 8 months ago, Dadi was secessionist stronghold. Today, most locals are gone. The army suspected many of being accomplices of armed separatists.
The village is deserted because the inhabitants are accomplices. If they were innocent, they could have given us information about the secessionist fighters. Now they are gone. We even want them to come back, but they don't want to.
But fighting between the military and separatists continues, and it is too dangerous for refugees in Nigeria to return. 80% of those living in camps like these are women and children. The Aya Foundation is one of the few Cameroonian NGOs offering aid to traumatized people.
The first and second visits were not easy. The gun trauma, the burning of the house is a trauma. That trauma was so fresh in them. You could not even see a gleam of smile. But now you can see around, the children are really smiling and they are happy.
The Anglophone crisis continues to escalate in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Every day, more people arrive in Nigeria having fled violent turmoil. For the most part, their futures remain precarious.
Nothing is quite what it seems in Cameroon. This is the separatist area, Ambazonia they call it. The government soldiers are on red alert. They face constant attacks from the separatists here, and 500,000 civilians have upped and fled their homes.
There's another town that's abandoned. I mean, it's quite astonishing, just town after town, either trashed or abandoned or both.
We've gained rare access to the Cameroon military. The soldiers are regularly accused of brutality. They're trying to quash an often savage armed insurgency. They want independence for the minority English-speaking Anglophone areas, severing ties with the majority French-speaking government.
Till you bury the last one. Till the last one is buried.
The fighting's led to terrible destruction, and all too often the soldiers are seen as the enemy.
How do we know the army did not do this?
For which reason? For which reason?
Because they don't like the Anglophone people, the secessionists? That's what they're saying.
Anglophone?
Yeah.
I'm still asking, who is Anglophone in Cameroon? I'm speaking English. I'm Anglophone. If you are here today, it's for the welfare, for the well-being of your family, isn't it? Then why will you destroy what you have earned with so difficult? You are risking your life here.
But in this footage, soldiers are clearly seen setting homes alight. They've been accused of torturing and executing villagers to crush the separatist movement. Claims the military insists are all staged for use on social media.
I'm telling you again that we might not be saints, we are not, but we do our best so the population understands that we are with them and we have come here not only to defend them, to encourage them to develop themselves.
The soldiers take us to a hospital which was set on fire. Huge sections have been destroyed.
This is the theatre. It's cinders.
At least 4 patients died in their beds as the flames swept through the wards. With the soldiers all around us, the director says she's been told the separatists started it. But footage at the time shows soldiers standing by watching as the fire raged, leading to suspicions over exactly who was responsible.
We have police officer who was beheaded by secessionists.
The military presents us with hours of material which they say documents atrocities by the separatists. Most is too gruesome to broadcast. We're shown decapitated soldiers, their genitals cut, limbs amputated. Most of this has been uploaded on websites run by separatists. In this video, the man's accused of spying for the military. His beating and torture ends in execution. Again, uploaded on social media and stoking more fear. Whilst we're in the area, a truck loaded with aid for displaced civilians is set alight by the separatists, the food destroyed. There are terrible human rights abuses on both sides in this conflict. Fingers and limbs are cut off as punishment for ignoring the separatist boycott of government businesses.
You're not going to work?
Yes. I'm a security guard with CDC. So since by then up to now, I'm not going to job again because I'm afraid.
Separatist fighters who've apparently handed themselves in echoed the military's view, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the close army observation.
We're fighting because our brothers in the diasporas, they give us bad notions that we should take arms against the states so that we can't be separated.
The diaspora fund the insurgency, and their leader told us they're dealing with a brutal authoritarian regime.
The regime is desperate at this particular moment, and it's using every means to smear the Ambazonian War of Independence and to escape, crimes against humanity.
But the savagery in Cameroon has been largely ignored by the wider world, and the claims and counterclaims of brutality just keep on coming. Alex Crawford, Sky News in Cameroon.
I'm just keeping it real. Moving on to Cameroon, the last few weeks have been horrible for the people of southern Cameroon as President Paul Biya launched full attack on the English-speaking part of the country. First of all, keep in mind that during the First World War, Britain and France divided Cameroon, and this tore so many families apart. Before then, Germany was the one that was colonizing them. So they've been through a lot. Germany colonized them, and then Britain, and also France. They were one country before this division. So northern Cameroon, that is the French-speaking part of the country, was colonized by France, and it became independent in 1960. And then southern Cameroon, which is the English-speaking part of the country, also the Anglophone part of Cameroon, was colonized by the British. And when other countries were getting their independence, they didn't let them stand as a country. They said they were too small. Instead, they called them the United Kingdom Trust Territory. They gave them the option of either joining Nigeria because Nigeria speaks English, or reuniting with northern Cameroon because they used to be one. So some of them actually joined Nigeria. So some part of northern Nigeria used to be Cameroon. But the place we now know today as southern Cameroon decided that they wanted to reunite with their relatives in the north, so they decided to be part of Cameroon in what is now known as Cameroon's Unification Day. In fact, every year they celebrate this Reunification Day. So it's like two countries coming together, reunifying to be one. Now, they had an agreement that while they have a federal government, they will still be autonomous. Like Canada, in Canada, we have some part of the country like Quebec speaking French, and one part speaks English. They are both autonomous, yet they are together. This is Canada. So this is the same thing that Cameroon decided to do. So southern Cameroon and northern Cameroon decided to become one country with two separate government systems in July of 1961, the Forbam Conference. You can read more about that. And one of the agreements at the time is that southern Cameroon would retain its British institutions, such as using English in education, judiciary, and legislature. And do you know that several countries actually applauded southern Cameroon at that time for reuniting with their old country? Unfortunately, the party did not last long. That same year that they signed that agreement, the president at that time, Ahidjo, he reorganized the country from two federal states to becoming a 6-region country, and then he imposed what he called federal inspectors in each region, giving them more power than the locally elected politicians from those regions. And then by 1965, this president banned opposition parties completely. Not only that, he discarded the currency in the English-speaking part of Cameroon. And by 1971, can you guys believe that he abolished federalism altogether? And then when Paul Biya became president, he promised that he would stop the marginalization and that southern Camerooners would be treated equal. But as you guys can see today, Paul Biya actually made it worse. And of course, with the backing of France, the man is now forcefully recolonizing the English-speaking part of Cameroon through what we call mandatory assimilation. So for years now, the federal government of Cameroon would only send French-trained and French-speaking officials to go and run the schools in southern Cameroon, as well as run the cities and run the judiciary. So he sent these people to the English-speaking part of Cameroon. I mean, how can you learn anything if your teacher only speaks French and you speak English, unless you now become a French speaker? You see what I'm saying?
It's a private school, and their teachers are on strike in solidarity with colleagues in public schools. They want the government to stop sending teachers who only speak in French or pidgin English. Many students and parents support the striking teachers.
How can you take matters to court when the judge only speaks French? In fact, how can the English-trained lawyers operate under a French-trained judge and a French-speaking judge?
Lawyers are also on strike. Like teachers, they say the government is sending to their courts French civil law judges who don't understand English common law.
Keep in mind that English law is completely different from French law. So Southern Cameroonians decided that they are no longer reuniting with Cameroon, that they wanted to be on their own as they were before they decided to reunite with Northern Cameroon. But of course, each time this matter comes up, Paul Biya will try to silence them by sending the police to kill some of them. And so each time he will kill some of them and he would hope that people will shut up. For the last 1 year now, the people of Southern Cameroon have refused to stop their protest. I've showed you guys videos of how Paul Biya sent police to beat up lawyers who protested.
Look, the senior colleague is terrible.
Another lawyer is hijacked publicly. These other lawyers say they have been chased out of their hotel rooms and all their properties seized, including their wheat.
Very sad. Can you imagine? Also, when students protested, I've showed you guys videos of how Paul Biya sent police in the daylight to beat them up. So many of them were arrested as well.
You pussy, are you pussy? Are you pussy what they're doing is university students in Boya?
That's really sad. And this has been going on for more than a year. So many activists in the South that have spoken up have also been arrested. It's not just students or lawyers or teachers that have been arrested. So many activists have been arrested. And of course, he shut down the internet in Southern Cameroon every so often so that the world would not know about the atrocities going on there. But on October 1st of this year, because they announced that they are no longer reuniting with Cameroon, officials are saying that about 10 people were killed. Amnesty International said at least 17 people were killed, but Southern Cameroonians are saying that many more were killed on October 1st.
In Cameroon, there are fears that as many as 30 people have been killed in protests in English-speaking parts of the country. Amnesty International has confirmed 17 people were shot dead. Independent sources put the figure at 30.
Look, you see innocent neighbors have been abducted from their houses. Look at what they are doing to the girls. Those are my neighbors.
They don't forget to
see what they are doing. See what they are doing? See what they are doing to Cameroonians?
Right now, the government of Cameroon has declared the Anglophone protesters, the English-speaking protesters, as terrorists. So that justifies the police killing them. This is a mother that just lost her son. According to the mom, he wasn't even part of the protest.
When my pikin, it's also they want struggle for run. They should not run for your back food. That pikin did for that. I can't meet up for that. So I want to blood to come up for my pikin like that when they open them.
So what I don't understand right now is why a lot of people in Northern Cameroon are silent while he's killing people in Southern Cameroon, shutting down their internet so that the world would not know about what's happening there. How can you be quiet? Especially since a lot of people have fled from Southern Cameroon to Northern Cameroon. So you can't tell me that you don't know what is happening in Southern Cameroon. Especially because even you in northern part of Cameroon, you are not free. One man has been your president since 1982, 35 years, and the whole country is not trying to get rid of him. Are you kidding me? 35 years? Obviously, the man is not going to step down anytime. Before this whole protest started, a lot of Cameroonians will say, and at least there is peace in Cameroon. Shoo! Now there is no peace. There has not been peace for more than a year. When will you stand up to fight for what is right? Because the people of Southern Cameroon are minorities, only about 20%. If you turn the other eye just because the Southerners are not French speakers, when the man is done with them, he will have nobody else to bounce on but you. And I don't think that other African countries should leave Cameroon to this struggle. Not just Cameroon, but Togo as well, with all the protests that is happening in Togo. Other countries need to help as well. Of course, our sincere condolences to all those that have lost their loved ones. We'll keep you guys posted on the developments in Cameroon. You guys know I don't know much. Guess what?
The letter was written 4 days ahead of a high-level UN security meeting. Cameroonian politician Kawala spoke to us, and she said the intention of the letter was to get the United Nations to intervene in the crisis by communicating with the Cameroonian government now.
To the UN Security Council, we have said we do not want to be the next peacekeeping mission. We don't want to see blue helmets in Cameroon. So the Security Council should act now using its power of communication, because it has a lot of power in its communication. It has yet, after 5 years, the Security Council has not yet communicated to Cameroon recommending dialogue, inclusive, bottom-up dialogue with all the actors at the table. The Security Council has not recommended simple actions which can de-escalate tensions in Cameroon.
In the restive English-speaking regions of Cameroon, warring parties have not listened to the United Nations call for an end to the ongoing war amid the coronavirus pandemic. It is worth noting that Cameroon is the second worst, most displaced crisis according to the Norwegian Refugee Council's annual list. They say it is due to lack of acute finance, overwhelmed needs, and media neglect, as well as diplomatic neglect.
À nouveau, André Inda, politologue, philosophe, merci de m'avoir rejoint pour cette troisième partie. Karine Orio, merci également de m'avoir rejoint. Et Paul Eutin est resté également avec moi. Dans quelle proportion la crise anglophone impacte-t-elle la vie politique camerounaise? Avant d'en parler avec mes invités, mesdames et messieurs, je vous propose de suivre ce reportage à nouveau signé Viviane Baoken, une de nos correspondantes au Cameroun.
Derrière les revendications d'ordre corporatrice posées par les avocats, les magistrats et les enseignants d'expression anglaise au Cameroun, l'on a vu apparaître une tentative de récupération politique. Cela a été symbolisé par des appels aux villes mortes, le boycott des enseignements dans les établissements scolaires et la fermeture de certains marchés. Pour certains hommes politiques, le Cameroun est un pays stable. Il n'y a pas de quoi être inquiet.
Je ne considère pas que ce que nous avons vécu soit réellement des choses qui aient troublé la vie politique. Au contraire, cela montre aux yeux du monde, le monde entier, que le Cameroun est un pays vivace, un pays vivant. Il y a des gens, parfois, quand nous restons 2 ans sans problème, disent « Est-ce que le Cameroun dort ? Pourquoi il n'y a jamais de problème chez vous ?»
En déclarant dans son discours à la nation le 31 décembre 2017 que le Cameroun est un et indivisible, le chef de l'État, Paul Biya, rejetait sans appel les velléités fédéralistes ou sécessionnistes. La commission de promotion du bilinguisme et du multiculturalisme mise en place devra désormais veiller au vivre ensemble des Camerounais.
Certainement qu'elle a été un peu secouée, puisque la mise en place même de cette commission est déjà une réaction et une réponse à ce qui est en train de se passer dans le pays. Et nous nous sentons hautement honorés de devoir faire partie de cette première équipe qui pourra servir de médiateur, comme l'a si bien annoncé le Premier ministre, dans le cas des situations du genre.
Les opinions restent divisées au sein de certains partis politiques. Au Social Democratic Front, le principal parti de l'opposition, une fraction est pour le fédéralisme et une autre exige l'application des lois sur la décentralisation prévues par la Constitution de 1996.
Karine Orio, le sénateur Tchongui, a le sens de l'humour, on l'a entendu dans l'élément, il dit finalement, c'est une querelle de famille, ce qui se passe, la crise anglophone au Cameroun. Ce n'est pas une crise aussi grave que cela, vous partagez cette lecture qu'il a de la crise qu'a connue votre pays ces dernières semaines.
Alors c'est très marrant parce que le sujet s'est intitulé donc cette crise anglophone sur la vie, les répercussions sur la vie politique.
C'est ça.
Au début, ils ont fait la sourde oreille. C'est une revendication sociale qui a lieu d'exister. Après, on a parlé d'abord de la corporation. C'est une revendication sociale. Il y a des revendications sociales qu'il faut entendre. Ça fait partie de la vie de la cité. Maintenant, quand en Afrique, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'il vaut mieux qu'une question soit taboue, comme ça on ne l'aborde pas, et puis elle va être résolue toute seule.
Vous pensez que la crise a impacté, ou du moins impacte la vie politique camerounaise? Et dans quelle proportion, dites-nous?
Mais complètement. Elle pose la question, est-ce qu'on a un projet social? On parle, là on se bat pour des langues léguées par les colons finalement. Le français c'est quoi? L'anglais c'est quoi? On a des langues vernaculaires. La place de ces langues-là aussi doit être posée. C'est un débat public qui a lieu d'être. Il faut un dialogue national autour de notre projet finalement, de nos identités. On a des ethnies, on a tout ça, mais ça soulève un vrai problème.
Ça fait longtemps que les acteurs anglophones donc, de cette crise réclament ce dialogue national. Monsieur Hinda, c'est une demande qui doit être prioritaire pour le gouvernement camerounais, convoquer un dialogue national pour résoudre la question anglophone.
Écoutez, moi je crois qu'il faut savoir une chose simple, en même temps qui est fondamentale. On ne joue pas le destin d'un État au dé. Vous comprenez? Il faut être extrêmement sérieux quand on commence à toucher au fondement d'un État. C'est une question extrêmement délicate et je crois qu'il faut être sérieux par rapport à ça. Moi, je crois qu'il y a effectivement des revendications d'ordre socio-économique qui, pour certaines, sont tout à fait légitimes et il y a des solutions qui ont commencé à être mises en place pour y répondre. Et ces solutions, il faut d'abord commencer par les expérimenter, les évaluer et, le cas échéant, revenir sur les résultats. Ça, c'est une première chose. La deuxième chose qui me semble tout à fait fondamentale aussi, c'est bien de se dire que, en réalité, les questions qui concernent les revendications anglophones ne sont pas seulement d'ordre linguistique.
C'est cela.
Derrière la langue, qu'est-ce qui est en jeu? Il y a des questions de droit, il y a des questions de société, il y a des questions économiques, il y a des questions de valeurs, il y a des questions même de vivre ensemble de manière plus large. Et donc, c'est une problématique qui concerne la totalité du fonctionnement d'une société. Et donc, on ne peut pas remettre ça comme ça sur la table en se disant, on va invoquer cette question, on va la régler, puis on va passer à autre chose.
Mais qu'est-ce que ça remet en cause fondamentalement?
Je ne crois pas que ça remette en cause quelque chose de fondamental.
D'accord.
Je pense que c'est plutôt simplement une articulation de l'État qui n'a pas été tout à fait aboutie, qu'il faut accompagner pour que ce soit plus abouti. C'est la question de la décentralisation qu'il faut renforcer, qu'il faut...
Avec transfert des compétences et des moyens.
Même avant de renforcer, il faut faire, parce qu'on ne l'a pas fait la décentralisation. Et en aucune manière, ça ne peut remettre en question la forme même de l'État. Voilà.
Paul Etienne.
Oui.
Il y a un besoin chez les administrés anglophones d'avoir plus proche de l'État. Il y a un besoin de présence d'État, de services publics.
Contrairement à ce que dit André, c'est tout le régime qu'il faut remettre ça. J'ai entendu tout à l'heure le mot stabilité. Ça me fait rigoler.
Mais c'est moi qui l'ai prononcé. Vous pensez que dans l'Afrique d'aujourd'hui, votre pays, le Cameroun, n'est pas un pays stable?
À quel prix? J'ai entendu quand on était plus jeune, on disait ça dans les autres années. Mais à quel prix? Toute dictature est stable, bien sûr. Mais puisque les gens sont écrasés, ils ne peuvent pas sortir. La preuve, dès qu'il y a un mot, dès que quelqu'un pose, même pour la première fois, une revendication qui n'est pas criminelle en soi, on l'envoie au tribunal militaire, on le confond avec Boko Haram. Si le pays était fonctionné normalement avec débat d'opinion, d'expression libre, permanente, le problème ne serait pas posé. Je veux dire, si les gens, ils n'ont pas pris les armes, pourquoi on ne juge pas le tribunal militaire? Ils n'ont tué personne.
En réponse à ce que dit Paul Etienne, une demande de plus d'espace de liberté.
Mais bien sûr, c'est ça qui fait fonctionner selon l'État.
Monsieur Etienne, moi je ne suis pas complètement d'accord avec vous. Je pense quand même qu'au Cameroun,
c'est le débat.
On peut s'exprimer.
On est d'accord.
On a quand même, on a qu'à voir dans le domaine des médias, le nombre de médias qui existent. On peut s'exprimer.
Il y a une floraison de médias
chez
vous au Cameroun.
Le problème cette fois-ci, c'est qu'il y a une coupure d'Internet et que cette coupure d'Internet pose
3 mois ça a duré.
La question. Mais il y a la manipulation, il y a l'instrumentalisation. Il faut le signaler. Je ne suis pas pour ces coupures d'Internet. Je suis d'accord avec vous. Mais dire tout de suite qu'on tombe dans une dictature, il y a des problèmes qui ne vont pas. On a un pays qui est corrompu, qui n'est pas très bien classé. On a énormément de difficultés, mais de là à dire qu'on est forcément opprimé, etc., je pense qu'il ne faut pas exagérer.
Oui, M. Hinda.
Oui, juste un mot. Il faut dire que...
Quelle doit être la matérialisation, effectivement, de cette décentralisation que vous évoquez aujourd'hui et à quelle échéance ça doit se faire aujourd'hui pour calmer les ardeurs de vos compatriotes?
Je pense qu'on a une architecture qui est là. Il y a des lois qui ont été élaborées et mises en place.
La loi camerounaise sur la décentralisation.
Il faut la mettre en œuvre, ça c'est une chose. Et la mettre effectivement en œuvre, ça c'est une première chose. La deuxième chose qui est vraie, et je pense que sur ce point, M. Paul Etienne a peut-être raison, c'est de dire que peut-être qu'il y a eu, je dirais, un excès dans la façon dont l'État a déployé ses moyens. Donc, je dirais qu'il y a un problème de disproportion qui est tout à fait avéré. Mais ça, c'est une autre chose. La troisième chose qui me semble fondamentale, c'est de dire que dans la batterie des mesures que l'État a mis en place...
Il faut tenir peut-être compte aussi de la dimension sécuritaire de la question. Aujourd'hui, vous luttez contre Boko Haram, vous êtes dans un contexte, Paul Etienne, le contexte social et sécuritaire aujourd'hui au Cameroun est difficile. L'État n'a peut-être pas les moyens de se permettre une crise parallèle.
De comparer ceux qui ont posé les problèmes à Bamenda et à Boya au Boko Haram qui égorge au nord.
C'est ça.
Tout le monde, même un enfant de 6 ans, voit la différence.
Voilà.
Envoyer les mêmes militaires à Boya et à Garoua, c'est disproportionné. Ça veut dire que le régime a peur quelque part. Ça veut dire que Le président qui est en place maintenant nous a dit en 82, vous n'étiez peut-être pas nés, les enfants. On a plus besoin de marquis pour exprimer son opinion.
Alors
Malheureusement, ça va durer 1 an. Et le coup d'État de 84 tentatives a été un prétexte pour revenir à jamais.
Il s'est passé des choses quand même.
Oui, mais ça non. Quand on est démocrate,
bien sûr.
On privilégie toujours le droit, la liberté,
bien sûr.
par rapport à d'autres avatars. Mais vous ne pouvez pas me dire, après tout, moi, me dire que c'est le cas dans ce pays-là. Non.
Non, alors là, on n'est pas d'accord. Là, on n'est juste pas d'accord, c'est qu'effectivement, ils ont déployé des moyens de sécurité pour ce qu'ils considèrent comme des attaques terroristes, alors qu'on a beaucoup à rater. On est en droit de se poser cette question-là.
Monsieur Hinda, évidemment, en tenant compte de ce contexte que je viens d'évoquer, dites-nous quelle doit être la matérialisation de la décentralisation telle qu'elle est contenue dans la loi sur la décentralisation.
Vous insistez beaucoup sur la décentralisation.
Oui, puisque c'est la solution.
Non, je pense que c'est une articulation, mais ce n'est pas la seule. Je dirais même que c'est pas la plus déterminante.
D'accord, dites-nous.
Au fond de la crise, on vous a dit qu'il y a un sentiment de marginalisation. Ben, il faut répondre à ce sentiment. Et comment on répond à ce sentiment? Il y a toute une série, si vous voulez, d'actes à la fois symboliques, mais en même temps aussi techniques qu'il faut poser. Au niveau symbolique, quand on arrête les gens qui manifestent, la première chose, je pense qu'il faut faire, c'est tout de suite, maintenant, prononcer une amnistie générale. De façon à ce qu'on libère toutes les personnes qui sont en prison et qui ont été emprisonnées au nom simplement du fait qu'ils avaient revendiqué. C'est symbolique, mais c'est fondamental et c'est très fort. C'est une première chose. Au niveau technique, puisque ici, il faut aller très vite et...
Ah si, c'est vrai, allez-y très rapidement.
Au niveau technique, je pense que la commission qui a été mise en place, c'est un bel outil. Vous comprenez ? Je peux peut-être regretter le fait qu'elle ne soit pas suffisamment inclusive. Je pense qu'on aurait dû inclure un peu plus des acteurs qui ne sont pas nécessairement des acteurs du régime. Ça aurait pu être plus intéressant et plus équilibré. Mais le plus important dans cette commission-là, en fait, à mon avis, c'est d'en faire un instrument qui va préparer quelque chose de beaucoup plus fort, qui pourrait être de l'ordre des états généraux de la question anglophone. Parce que derrière la question anglophone, il y a la question, en fait...
Le malaise général
il y a la question de la façon dont l'État gère sa diversité culturelle. La diversité culturelle. Et la diversité culturelle n'est pas seulement d'ordre linguistique. Hein. Elle est à plusieurs niveaux, sur plusieurs plans. Et c'est cette question qu'il faut sérieusement poser en termes de réflexion collective.
Vous pensez qu'il faut aujourd'hui une sorte d'état généraux pour aborder cette problématique-là? Alors vous parlez du caractère non inclusif de cette commission. Et sachez quand même que c'est une commission composée d'éminentes personnalités camerounaises. Elle est présidée par l'ex-chef du gouvernement, M. Peter Mafani Moussongue, qui est sénateur originaire du Sud-Ouest. Son adjoint, une autre personnalité, et pas des moindres, M. Oumarou Dika Saïdou, et 13 autres membres, dont 4 femmes et 3 anciens ministres, monsieur...
Je vais préciser tout de suite. C'est une commission qui est sérieuse, qu'il faut prendre au sérieux. C'est la raison pour laquelle on a désigné un ancien Premier ministre qui est quelqu'un de sérieux. Donc, je ne doute pas du sérieux. Je dis simplement qu'on aurait pu être plus inclusif. Voilà.
Moi, je peux rajouter un truc quand même. Parce que là, M. Hinda fait la langue de bois. Je ne vois pas en quoi une revendication sociale comme celle-là doit être forcément composée d'une commission d'anciens membres du gouvernement. Où est la société civile là-dedans? Je suis désolée, ils politisent.
C'est ce que j'ai dit.
Non, mais oui, mais vous n'allez pas jusqu'au bout de vos propos. Ce que je trouve dommage, c'est que forcément, tout reste politique. C'est complètement dommage.
Mais la question, elle n'est pas politique.
Non, mais elle n'est pas
d'abord politique.
Elle est sociétale. Elle est sociétale. Là, ce dont on a besoin, c'est de la proximité. Quand il y a eu le début, justement, de cette grogne, on nous a dit pourquoi Paul Biya n'a jamais fait un discours en anglais. C'était une des questions essentielles. Mais effectivement, c'est l'arbre qui cache la forêt. Il n'y a pas que ça, il n'y a pas que le problème anglophone. Demain, on va poser la question. Il y a le problème Bamileke aussi. Demain, on nous dira, on ne nous a pas réconciliés avec notre histoire. Donc, il faut... Je suis désolée, il faut un vrai dialogue, il faut une vraie proximité avec la population.
Du point de vue pratique, dites-nous, M. Hinda, qu'est-ce qui a fait que tout Camerounais n'est pas bilingue, tout simplement?
Alors, contrairement à ce que vous pensez, à ce que vous venez de dire, moi j'appartiens à une génération où on étudiait en langue française et en langue anglaise, très tôt, dès l'école primaire. Moi j'ai commencé l'anglais à l'école primaire.
Où est-ce qu'il y a eu la cassure
Non, le problème, à mon humble avis, c'est qu'on s'est installé dans une sorte de confort qui est tout à fait naturel. Et quand on voit la vie des nations de par le monde, quand on a une majorité et qu'elle commence à s'articuler, à se déployer, on s'installe dans un confort qui est tel qu'on fait plus suffisamment attention à ce qu'on peut faire au niveau des minorités. Et donc, le fait qu'il y ait des réactions minoritaires aussi tranchées, finalement, qui se radicalisent, c'est tout à fait normal dans la vie d'une nation. Juste d'un mot. Tout à l'heure, on a cité le Canada. Vous savez, au Canada, la majorité est anglophone. Les francophones, à l'inverse du Cameroun, sont minoritaires, mais ils ont développé une détermination et une volonté qui est telle qu'aujourd'hui, même dans les universités,
grâce à la démocratie,
on a des études minoritaires.
Grâce à la démocratie, André.
Oui, tout à fait.
On a vu...
Quand ça ne peut pas fonctionner au Canada.
Très rapidement, on a vu effectivement pendant les manifestations des anglophones dire on nous envoie des francophones nous enseigner l'anglais. Pourquoi ça doit être un problème, puisque le fonctionnaire camerounais doit pouvoir être déployé partout sur l'étendue du territoire camerounais. Pourquoi est-ce que c'est un problème qu'un francophone enseigne l'anglais?
Ce n'est pas un problème si l'inverse, si ce que Dieu se faisait dans les deux sens, mais pas tout à fait, Et ils ont été victimes d'un mépris, j'allais dire à la française, un peu... Vous voulez, on vous donne l'argent et vous vous taisez comme ça.
Merci, Paul.
Je suis d'accord avec eux sur leur revendication, mais c'est la solution de fédéralisme.
Merci,
pour lesquels
Paul.
je suis pas d'accord parce que c'est très
rapidement, Madame Orio, votre mot de la fin. Je m'impose la galanterie de vous donner le dernier mot.
Merci. J'espère que cette crise dite anglophone va nous permettre aussi de nous interroger sur nos propres langues, sur la survie de nos propres langues vernaculaires, et que dans 20 ans, on ne parlera plus d'un problème anglophone, mais plutôt du Cameroun avec ses langues.
Merci à vous trois.
At least 7 children were killed by attackers who stormed a school in Kumba on October the 24th. Now, no group has claimed responsibility for the assault on the Mother Francisca Academy in the English-speaking southwest region. The government blamed Anglophone separatists who have enforced a school boycott since they self-declared the state of Ambazonia. That was 3 years ago. The secessionists say English speakers have faced decades of marginalisation by Cameroon's francophone majority. But Kumba's mayor called for unity a day after the attack. This is what he said.
United we stand, divided we fall. United we stand, divided we fall. So let us be united, Kumba people, and take away anger from our society. Yes, they are our children. We are ready to receive them back to town as good boys and girls so that we can collaborate together with them. But not this kind of activities.
A heartfelt appeal there from the mayor of Kumba, but attacks have continued elsewhere in the southwest region. Several teachers were kidnapped from 2 schools in Kumbo on Tuesday. That's according to a teaching union and local church leaders. More than 3,000 people have been killed in violence by secessionists and government forces in the southwest and northwest Anglophone regions since October 2017. For more on all of this, we are joined by Edwin Gang, a senior presidential advisor for the self-declared Republic of Ambazonia. He's in the US city of Columbia, Maryland. Karwala is president of the Cameroon People's Party. She joins us from Douala. And in London, we have Eric Acha. He is executive director at the Africa Policy Forum. Hello, guests. I'm just going to ask you this straight out. I am just looking to see what is happening in Cameroon right now. Kar, I am just seeing a civil war. Can I call it a civil war?
I don't think we can quite call it a civil war. I think that we have a group of people, a significant group of people, 20% of the population, that has been marginalized for the last 60 years. That sentiment of marginalization is general. However, within that group of 20% of the people, a very, very small minority have decided to take up arms to fight for their rights. The majority of Anglophones in Cameroon do not agree with an armed fight. I think there's agreement that the Anglophone population is marginalized, that we have to solve this problem. But for those of us who live in Cameroon, an overwhelming majority do not believe in the use of violence to fight for our rights.
And yet, 3,000 people have been killed since 2017, and that's probably quite a conservative estimate. I want you to hear, Ka, because you said this is not a civil war. These are a few people fighting each other. I want you to hear a witness who saw what happened at the school in Kumba, and then a parent of a child who was murdered. Let's have a listen.
Yes, there was a shooting with their local guns. People were crying, and the worst part was when they came on top of this building. I heard most shouting when they had climbed here, and they started shooting here. By then, I never knew that they were killing people here. So after they are done, they ran away. Before, when we were running away, I saw dead bodies lying here, some lying unconscious even.
Yesterday, I carried Rennie.
Yesterday, I carried Rennie. I told her, Rennie, please don't disappoint me and die. And she said, Father, I will not disappoint you. I had so much hope for Rennie, so much hope. And now she's gone. I know she struggled to live. If she didn't battle for her life, she would have died immediately when she was shot. But she battled for her life.
So, Edwin, no parent wants to ever bury their child, but in those particular circumstances, it's horrific. When you heard about the school children being murdered, what was your reaction?
I consider what is going in Cameroon right now as the consequence of the failure by the United Nations to implement the results of the 1961 plebiscite. You see, we cannot be skirting around the edges of the problem. This Cameroon is actually a failed state. The bilingual experiment, which unfortunately our parents undertook in good faith in the brotherhood of Pan-Africanism, has failed. We should just declare it as failed and be looking for the permanent solution. And actually, I think what is important is that the world current processes addresses problems based on those parts of life that affects real people. Those children died because Cameroon is trying to make an experiment in merging two incompatible systems. It can't work. Let's just put an amber exit, which is the equivalent to Brexit that just happened in the United Kingdom, where the European Union allowed, under the auspices of the Maastricht Treaty, anybody in European Union, any of the countries in European Union can decide at what time to leave. And United Kingdom has left the European Union.
So, Edwin,
the Republic of Ambazonia needs to leave.
We just heard that parent grieving over his child, and you go back to a plebiscite. So that was your first reaction. You're thinking
1961.
Politics. You're thinking politics. You're not like, I see that parent, and what's the hashtag right now? Cameroon is bleeding. Okay, the Cameroons are sharing. Cameroon is bleeding. You're going back to a 1961 plebiscite. That was your first feeling. That was your first feeling. That was, and everybody heard that. Let me just bring in Eric.
And
can't go ahead, and then Eric.
A permanent solution.
So that's what you thought. You saw the dad, you saw him grieving, and you thought 1961. Carl, go ahead.
I think this is the problem. We have a political problem in Cameroon. That is clear. As Anglophones, we feel marginalized. As Anglophones, we do not have the same unanimous opinion on the solution. Some want to separate and go into Ambazonia.
Okay, let's call for that exclusive referendum.
Some want to stay within Cameroon and be able to have a federal solution. And some even want to stay in the unitary state as it is. Why are we killing children over this? We want, those of us who live in Cameroon, we want Mr. Edwin Gang and every other Ambazonian group to declare that they are going to stop their troops from attacking children in schools.
So we don't know, Carl. We don't know.
We want them to declare. We want them to declare.
Calling time for a moment. I've never had to call time so early in a show before. Calling time just for a moment, because I want to guess.
They're not responsible for this, and that they have told their fighters not to attack.
Just bringing the sound down a little bit. Carl, listen to me. Just for a moment. I do want everybody to hear your points that you're making. I want to bring in Eric here. Eric, can't
posed a really good question that international community, our stream viewers will want to know, why are children being killed in Cameroon? Eric, can you explain that?
Yeah, thank you, Femi, and it's a pleasure being on your show here. I didn't quite understand how we were to intervene. That's why I was a bit silent while listening to my two colleagues talking. Before I even answer the question which you're asking, Femi, I want to take this opportunity to extend my sincere condolences to the families that were concerned, that had their children slaughtered there in Kumba in the most horrific way which one can imagine. Now, having said that, there is no justification, whatever that may be, there is no justification that would allow or say children who want to study, children who are eager to get educated, be slaughtered in their classrooms. That is one aspect. About who is behind what we saw in Kumba, it's another question, which we may be here for the next couple of hours and not really get that answer, because we are dealing here with a situation that...
I disagree. We already know who is... We know the solution. Please, we should stop politicizing this problem. That is the problem we are having.
If I may finish, Edwin.
Eric.
If I may finish, Edwin. If I may finish, I am not politicizing the situation because I understand these groups. I understand this government so well. And reason why I am saying we should not be qualifying or pointing fingers at the moment, as I'm seeing people pointing, saying they are the Amber Boys. Knowing this regime and knowing what they are capable of doing, they shouldn't be taken off the radar as also being culprits of those who commit a crime. That is a fact.
My concern
and
is
just
that...
to add on to something, if you allow me, just to differ a little bit with Madam Kawala on this aspect of whether are we facing a war in Cameroon. She gave a different answer, which I respect her opinion, but for anyone who's been following up this conflict will agree that there is no other terminology that can qualify what we are seeing in Cameroon other than civil war. People are getting killed. We hear gunshots where those in Cameroon hear gunshots every day, in the morning, in the night. People can't go out about their businesses normally because you will either encounter the military on the street or the fighters. So there is a war going on and people are getting killed.
All right, that is why I was looking at this and saying this has got to be a civil war. But what is more important is what is happening to civilians, to women, to children, to civilians who are not fighting at all. So we spoke to Human Rights Watch in Italy, and they just listed the atrocities, the everyday issues that people in Cameroon were having to deal with. Have a listen.
The crisis in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon has had a devastating impact on civilians. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced because of the violence, forced to flee their homes, and are currently living in particularly harsh conditions in the bush, lacking access to basic services such as water, food, education, healthcare. And the majority of those internally displaced are women and children. Civilians have been directly targeted by both parties to this crisis, government forces and separatist fighters. They've been killed, harassed, assaulted.
Edwin, I know you're really focused on how do we get out of this situation, as is, I would say, the majority of people in Cameroon. Catherine is watching you on YouTube right now. Catherine says the United Nations cannot solve Cameroon's problems. Edwin, who can solve Cameroon's problems? What ideas do you have for where do you go from here? Where innocent children are being slaughtered at school, now what does Cameroon do?
We have a problem which clearly can be solved by recognition of the facts of the case. We are a sovereign people who have recovered our sovereignty as Republic of Amazonia. We came into this union with the French-speaking people, and it hasn't worked. So United Nations has precedents already. They intervened in the issue in 1947 in Pakistan during the Kashmir issue, and have since led a template for how you can solve problems by invoking the articles that apply. With us, we have the Article 76B having been implemented. left unimplemented. And we are only asking now that since these two people cannot be led to leave because the systems that they inherited are systemically incompatible, let us grant exclusive referendum, just as it happened for the United Kingdom people with Brexit. The people of Amazonia required.
Okay, so Brexit is an economic. The Brexit was an economic situation. I think if you're going to use an analogy, Scotland breaking away or voting to break away from the United Kingdom is a more accurate analogy, not an economic union.
I'm using it because of the statutes that are inherent in Maastricht Treaty. We are no longer going to be led astray by politicking, which is always why all what has been prescribed is pro-Cameroon solutions. Since this event started in 2016, they've always been given the pro-Cameroon solution. So we want.
I'm very sorry, but
I would like to challenge you on this. If you think that democracy can be applied in this, let's go for a referendum. Let's go for an exclusive referendum. Please don't be afraid for exclusive referendum.
The point that Mr.
Anyway, let's be generous enough and share the conversation. Carl, go ahead.
Yes, I think that the position that some people have, that the only solution to the marginalization they have experienced over the last 60 years is separation, is a legitimate political position to have. And I think that I don't agree with their position, but I respect it. When you asked earlier whether this was a civil war, definitely we are in a war situation. I said no to the civil war because I don't want to give people
you don't have to go back to a conversation that you already had, because you already put your position very clearly. But what I do want to I want to push on though, Carl, because otherwise we're going to go round in circles, and we don't have time for that. I want to push on with this idea about speaking to the government, because this is not separatist groups talking to themselves. Like, how do you speak to the government if Edwin is talking about a breakaway and the separatists are fighting? Now what do you do? Can there be a ceasefire?
Yes. Right now, we on the ground, we have requests to the government, who is the primary person responsible, and we ask that the government initiate ceasefire, that the government release all the prisoners, because the unjust and arbitrary arrests which have taken place over the last 4 years are fueling the sentiment of injustice. We ask that the government create the conditions for dialogue, because it is only if we have conditions where every opinion can come to the table and dialogue.
So I'm going to say, if I may, just interject just for a moment. We did ask the government if they would be part of this conversation. They said they were unavailable. They are talking, Edwin, to some parts of the separatist groups. Now, the problem I'm having, and I'm sure the problem you are having, is that there are so many different separatist groups, and there are people who have infiltrated the separatist groups. So how do you come to any sense of peace right now?
We understand that. Is that for me or for Eric? But I would say that it's part of our assumption. Cameroon has infiltrated our revolution, but we know how to tackle this, and it's simple. Cameroon dreads the mention of legalities of the problem. If we go and deconstruct how these English-speaking people came to be associated with these French-speaking people, the solution is apparent. And I like the challenge of democracy, because Cameroon is allergic to democracy. The reason why you haven't seen any opposition in La République du Cameroon, they have had 2 presidents since 1960, is because they have associated democratic change with the independence of Amazonia. It's simple. Let's not be skirting around and pretending. Francophones are quiet while they have been killing the English-speaking people because they are afraid to support our cause, fearful that their plantation is going to leave. But I'm asking that. I'm all for this permanent solution today. Let the world understand that we have called for an exclusive referendum. We know that this has been debated at the United Kingdom House of...
All right. The internet is kind to me because I needed a pause and the internet gave me one. Edwin, I'll come back to you. I lost your audio for a moment, but I want to bring in another thought and another idea from another Cameroonian, which is that Edwin is in the United States right now. He's not in Cameroon. But in Cameroon, some of the people that we reached out to said it's even difficult to talk politics. Like, how do you have that conversation right now? And it's a really difficult situation for that to happen. Have a listen.
We have seen police pickups ambushing people. I saw a police unit pass by among others, and there are gendarmerie vehicles behind the petrol station where they pick up people. They infiltrate the crowd, pick protesters up, sneakily put them in a car, and then they bring them to jail.
This is abuse. On the contrary, the state should supervise this march because it is said to be peaceful. We don't understand what is happening. What country are we living in? Young people are dying, young people are suffering, we are fed up, it's a cry of despair, and it's time for things to stop.
So, that was back in September where people were being scooped up off the streets because they were protesting. Eric, I'm wondering if, just going back to this one incident with the school children, there have been so many, is this now a tipping point for the government having to talk to people? There is going to be, and the government has suggested, regional elections. Is that a way to maybe share power with English-speaking Cameroonians? Is there something in there that you're seeing might be like a sliver of potential for a ceasefire to happen? Eric?
Not at all, Femi, unfortunately. What we are seeing in Cameroon, it's from their playbook. The Cameroon government has a playbook, and they are good at this. I am surprised when I hear Madame Kawala saying that they have spoken to the government, they have requested them to do this, they've requested them to do that, as though she's a stranger to that government. The Cameroon government is not one that listens. They do things the way they want to do them. What happened in Kumba, to me, is a tipping point for the international community to stand up. They need to say, we've had enough, we've seen enough going on in Cameroon, and we've seen that the government is not willing to resolve this problem, and therefore we are going to step up the pressure. That is what is required in Cameroon. The regional elections is a farce. Don't forget what we are talking about here is something that came up since 1996. This was a promise since 1996, these regional council elections. Why are they happening now? Is it because of the conflict, or just because they want to paint or whitewash another war and mislead the international community as though they are listening? They don't listening, they do things according to their playbook. So the international community must step in at this point and end this conflict. It's not something for Cameroon to do unilaterally. It's gone past that stage. We need an independent mediator to step in and help resolve this conflict. It can't be left for Cameroon alone. It's gone past that stage.
There's no question that the international community should step up pressure. We have been asking the international community to step up pressure for the last 4 years. And that does not mean that we in Cameroon stop demanding from government, Mr. Acha. We are the front line here, and we are going to keep demanding from government that we get an end to this conflict until we get it. And at the same time, we are asking government to end this crisis. We are also asking the Amazonian movement to put an end to the killing and to tell us, I agree with you 100%, that I would not dare to say it is this person who carried out the killings in Kumba, it is these people who carried out the kidnappings in Kumbo, or the incident in Limbe this morning. However, we would love to have the Amazonian groups come out in public and say, we would never cause harm to our children. No fighter who causes harm to children can claim himself or herself of the Amazonian movement, and we are not a party to this. We need the fighting to end to go to a political solution.
I want to leave the last thought in our conversation with a doctor who went to Kumba, who saw some of the wounded children and saw how the children were murdered just over a week ago. I think it just concentrates everybody's minds on why we need a peace solution so desperately in Cameroon. Have a listen.
Visiting the children who survived the Kumba massacre was a moment of grief and pain for me, because I got to see these innocent kids who were gruesomely butchered for a cause they knew nothing about. Some were even lucky to have survived the incidents, because from the scene you see that some had gunshot injuries and some were butchered with cutlasses. It's unacceptable. School children should not be a target for such a crisis, for something they even know nothing about, and just because they went to school. The pain, the agony was real.
Please subscribe to this channel and also tap the notification bell in order for you not to miss out on any of our videos.
Attention! Salute! Hail, hail, hail this land of glory. 1, 2, sing. Hail, hail, hail this land of glory. We Amazonia, special loyalty. Renaissance and Savior who granted us our freedom. Renaissance and Hero who brought this land with their blood. Glory, glory, we rise and never to fall. Yeah, in a nation for Him who make and honey. Glory, glory, glory to the Father. Make it nation and joy forevermore. Amazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty in our nation. And your children shall be like the stars above. The most I could be the watchman of this nation. Amazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty in our nation. And your children shall be like the stars above. The most I could be the watchman of this nation. Amazonia, 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 take over, take over, Amazonia. Amazonia, Amazonia. Man, get the critical area. Into the line. Amazonia, Amazonia, Amazonia. Oh, my home, my home. Oh, my home, my home. When shall I see my home? My home, my home. When shall I see my home? I will never forget my home. My home. When shall I see my home? I will never forget my home. Hey! 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 Education.